Okay, guys, welcome again to another weekly review. This is the God of Indices channel. I'm glad to always bring you these insights into the market, so you can be able to find your directional bias. Right? If you're watching us for the first time, I would like you to, if you've not subscribed to our channel, I'd like you to subscribe and turn on post notification so we can reach more traders with this value, right? So we'll jump right into it today, right? For our God of Indices channel, we focus mainly on trading. We the key is to focus on trading one asset, right? So we focus on trading majorly GU, right? GU and EU, but we know that GU and EU are correlated, so can either be trading GU or trading EU, whatsoever you choose to trade. So today, from last week, or from our analysis, we were bearish on GU, and we saw how nicely that played out last week. Bearishness on GU. So this week, we'll look at what price is doing. Price is likely going to do this week, right? So we're on the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we want to be able to anticipate the movement of price, right? We want to be able to anticipate the movement of price for the week, right? So we've been having bearish expansion for the previous week. However, we've been failing to close below this here, right? Which might likely signify that this might be a liquidity run. We've been failing to close below this bullish candle. I've been failing to close below this, right? So going into this week, we might likely see that close, right? For it doesn't really appear on the weekly time frame, but let's go down to the daily time frame and see what the daily time frame is telling us. On the daily time frame, we see that we immediately we wicked below this low, right? We wicked below this low. Price has been kind of like ranging. Price has been ranging, has been in a range, accumulating this stage, right? So we've had an impulsive move to the downside. Although this was a small weak grab, I'm still anticipating, right, that price will still like to uh, dig down into this low, right? Dig down into this low. And what do we have that price may want to reference? We have this here, this here. We have this order block here. There's an order block here. That price may likely want to reference for us to continue going bullish. However, if we zoom in to this place, we'll see that there's a fair value gap, a tiny fair value gap resting here, which validates this order block, right? There's a tiny fair value gap, very tiny, resting here, right? This is also can be a point of reference for zoom. Can you see? So zoom out, you see it appears clearly, right? So there's a tiny fair value gap with an order block below it, right? So price can also just stab through this fair value gap, run liquidity again of these lows, right? We created for last week, then start moving to the upside. As you can see, this is the discount array, the most likely discount array that price will be gunning for, right? However, if we get this will be my last line of defense. This order block will be my last line of defense to tell us that we're going to continue downside to start seeking sell side liquidity. Seeking sell side liquidity to come, because we have an unmitigated void, liquidity void in this zone, right? So most likelihood, if the bearishness, see all these zones here from here, this is this zone. It's a liquidity void, right? It's a liquidity void that has not yet been mitigated. So Now, I don't always want to marry a bias and be stringent to a particular bias, but this would be to be my outlook of the market, right? I'll be wanting to trade until this zone, until this last order block. As soon as we get a BCC, body candle closure, below this order block, that gives me the confirmation that we are seeking sell side liquidity. We are seeking sell side liquidity, right? Seeking sell side to take the liquidity of the order block. We're seeking here. Come the next run will be here until we get to this fair value gap resting right here. Until we get to this fair value gap resting right here, right? To be in my next point of call. So, right, these are my views, right? And GU and EU are correlated. So this analysis will be similar for EU, right? We don't look at EU, but it will be similar for EU, and the inverse will be the case for DXY, right? I always advise you, if you're trading GU, use EU as your correlated pair to always look at it, right? And if you're trading EU, use GU, right? You can also want to use DXY to trade both of them, but from experience, I discovered that it's simpler, it's simple for you to use the associated correlated pair, which is EU to trade GU, and to use GU to trade EU, right? So that you can look for all those divergence and the SMTs on the other pair. So going into this week, right? Going into this week, looking at price, I wouldn't marry any bias into this week, right? Because I'll be looking, the first low hanging fruit will be the run of this sell side liquidity here, right? Will run off here. So I'll be trading in that direction. If I see a run, I'll trade in this direction, in the bearish direction, because there'll be a run of this liquidity to find support to go to internal range, right? So price can also decide to do this, right? Can decide to run this liquidity, go to this bullish, come back to internal range liquidity before continuing to the downside like this. So these are my view for price going into this week. Try to trade safe and make sure you protect yourself and use proper risk management in all your trading. I hope this was insightful and brought value to you. And remember, again, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please support our channel, subscribe and turn on post notifications so we can reach as many traders as possible, so that the algorithm will be able to pop out this video to help traders, right? Find consistency in finding their directional bias. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.